Welcome to Heroes and Villains Spinner Rack Reviews. We're looking at books that are coming out today on Wednesday, August the 9th, 2017. Today we're going to take a look at Flash number 28, The Shadow number 1, and Generations Jean Grey and Phoenix number 1 one-shot. So let's just dive right in it, guys.
Alright, I guess we'll start with Flash number 28. It is the beginning of a new story arc. It kind of ties into things that have happened in the past couple of issues. The Flash is now the negative Flash. He's full of negative zone power.
Negative Speed Force.
Negative Speed Force, that's right. Negative Speed Force power and is trying to cope with it. He's never really had to deal with this skill set, and it's a lot more destructive than he ever anticipated it to be. You get a lot of backstory. I haven't been reading The Flash up until this point, but it does look really good. You find out that Iris killed Professor Zoom, and that Barry and Iris are taking a break, and all Barry wants to do is talk to her and kind of get all of this under control.
We're on a break.
I've noticed that in the book, it seems like the negative Speed Force is affecting his physique as well. I mean, he's got crazy eyes when he's the Flash, but he's also got like a greenish hue to his forearms. And he's chasing some sort of speedster motorcycle gang. They're like really fast on motorcycles. And so he's chasing them down, destroys half the town while he's doing it. Ends up chasing them again and faces the
Shrapnel.
That's what his name is. Yeah.
And the motorcycle gang is called
The Reapers.
The Reapers, yes. And so at the end of the book, when he faces Shrapnel, he watches as Shrapnel murders the Reapers, and he wouldn't have been able to catch them had it not been for the Flash. And at the end of the book, the next one kind of hints towards the fact that he's an accomplice to murder now. In this book, you also find out that where Barry Allen works, the CSIs that he works with, the lab itself has been compromised. Someone's been stealing little bits of, I forgot the word for things.
Evidence.
Evidence, thank you.
Yeah.
Little bits of evidence and are squirreling them away somewhere.
It's DNA evidence.
It
Right?
is.
Yeah, blood,
a lot of blood.
samples, and whatnot.
Which, that's a big deal because if you lose your evidence in a police situation like that, you can compromise all the cases they're working on.
Exactly.
And so the guy in charge of the lab calls 2 detectives in, Barry Allen and another CSI, Central City type, and tells them of the problem and says, hey, we need to try to get to the bottom of why this evidence is missing and who among our colleagues is responsible.
Right. The good news is it's all closed cases, but at the same time, what are they going to do with this?
Even that,
blood they've been
in
taking.
a police, I'm not a policeman, but in a police situation, if somebody appeals and you have to go to trial and you can't produce that evidence,
right?
Stuff can get overturned.
So, on a whole, I thought the book was interesting. The storyline's pretty good. The art is meh.
Good. Yeah.
And
You're being kind by saying it to me.
Yeah. I want to learn more about the negative Speed Force and how he's going to cope with that. And I'm always a fan of the relationships inside the stories, so I want Iris and Flash back together. They're just supposed to be. I give it a bronze. I thought I would like it because I like a lot of stuff about the Flash, but this book was just kind of
I would say I'd give it a low silver. The artwork is okay. I mean, it's the same, very similar artwork that's been going on the whole Flash. I read the first couple story arcs. I like what they've done with the negative Speed Force.
Yeah.
I like how it's more destructive. I mean, it basically changes the Flash into a different speedster.
He really is. He's got powers that.
Yeah. He's able to destroy. I mean, he runs through stuff in his lightning, destroys stuff. He almost looks. Jenny Meg mentioned this, that it's altering him physically. He's darker, but he also looks more gaunt than any other time in Flash's,
Because I think he mentioned something about being hungry all the time, usually,
Yes.
and now
Yeah.
he's just exhausted.
Yes, he's
That and that Harold's back. They've been doing that with Flash since 1987 is when Wally got his stint as the Flash, the Flash's third ongoing series, and that happened with Wally when he would use his speed. He would have to eat and
Yeah.
Right.
boost himself back up. So that's kind of cool that they're throwing that back in there. But some of the new powers he's got, like I believe in the book, like he uses his lightning as an offensive weapon,
Mhm.
and that's kind of cool. But
But what I thought was interesting with the whole thing is, in the past with the regular Speed Force, he's kind of powered down a little bit after he runs a lot, but he could eat a candy bar and he could go on and run back to work. This, he hops on the bus, which I thought which shows that he's not even got enough juice to run to work.
what,
So
what
he's
I
late to work.
what I liked about the book was the story was pretty good. I like the fact that they're playing up that Barry is Flash, the fastest man alive, is his alter ego is the slowest man,
Right.
who's always late. I think
Right.
that's an interesting thing that I believe Jeff Johns, when he did Flash Rebirth, he kind of threw that in there to flesh out the character more of Barry. And I like that aspect of it. But the art, I'm with Jenny. It is meh. Is like I said, being kind. I don't like this art at all. And for that, I'm going to give it a bronze. I think it's worth a good read, but the art is awful, just flat out awful. All right, the second book we're going to take a look at this week is The Shadow #1 from Dynamite, and we're holding up the cover by Mike Kaluta. That's his name.
So the Shadow has been around for almost as long as comics have been really a big
Longer.
thing. So there's a lot of history and backstory.
Yeah, he's a pulp character from the 1930s.
Yep.
He had radio dramas, which used to be a big thing back before television took over. He's had multiple movies, and the last movie he had was
One of the Baldwins. I
Alec
think.
Baldwin was in it. It came on the heels of the first Batman movie in not the first Batman, but the Batman movie, the Tim Burton Batman movie in 1989. I want to say The Shadow came out probably in 1991, but he's a character that's been around a long time. He's an influential character. Some of the things about him inspired Bob Kane and Bill Finger to create Batman. And this is yet another reboot, or not reboot, but
Ongoing
ongoing
series, I think.
series for The Shadow.
So, the Shadow is a vigilante, and he gets his start in the old days fighting gangsters and organized crime. Very, very anti-organized crime, and he's kind of got some mystical powers. If anybody's seen the movie, that's a great look back into his backstory, his origin. Cranston is the character. Lamont Cranston is the character. Now, they don't mention him by name in there, but he actually travels the world and he learns all these mystical secrets and he comes back to fight crime. Very similar to
Lamont Cranston is a
Millionaire Playboy.
He's a millionaire playboy, which like later
very
on,
similar to
Bruce Wayne.
Bruce Wayne and Batman. So you can definitely see the ties between, or the similarities between Batman and the Shadow. The Shadow has no problem killing people. But he also is very psychological. He messes with people's minds, and some of the powers that he's gained by the mystical training that he's went around the world gathering, he can mess with people's mind. And so this book is kind of it's a great starting off point for somebody that doesn't know anything about the Shadow, because basically the story is being told by a resident doctor, an intern.
Yeah.
And she's talking about how the first time she met the Shadow, she was in high school. There was some, there's a school shooting. If that, spoiler, if you have problems with school shootings, be aware that that's in there. But so people are getting killed, and all of a sudden, she's about to get shot, and she hears this maniacal laughter, and that was one of the key trademarks of the Shadow was this laughter. Nobody knows the Shadow kind of thing. So the Shadow knows, and you get all that in there. So you get these phrases, these catchphrases that he's famous for. And obviously he starts manipulating one of the guys. He basically drives one of the guys crazy, and he kills the other one. And so the whole time, this doctor is telling the story to someone that's in a burn ward, it looks like.
Yeah.
And you see hands, and you see her taking off bloody bandages and whatnot. She's talking to him and whatnot, and you never really get anything. It's almost like you're looking through the eyes of the burn victim. So you're watching the doctor, and she's taking off, and she's talking, and and she says, and almost at the very end, she goes, well, he's like, why are you telling me this? And she goes, well, because when they brought you in, you were laughing. And he goes, okay. And she goes, I will never, ever forget that laugh.
Right.
You are the Shadow. And he goes, well, he does. It's not comical, but he goes, well, I don't remember.
Yeah.
So something, and I assume they're going to go into it later in issues, but something happens where he gets, 99% of his body burned up,
And he has amnesia.
and he had amnesia.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be interesting to see where they go with that. Like I say, the Shadow's been around. I don't even know. I'm not sure if I know his mystical power allows him to not age as fast as, I don't know if it gives him immortality, but I do remember that he does heal faster and slows his aging, but I don't remember if it makes him immortal or not.
His mystical powers are like, when I'm trying to compare him to any other hero, but he does play on the fear aspect of people. So he's Ghost Rider is a little like him in that respect.
Sure.
But Ghost Rider's a lot more powerful than the Shadow. The Shadow normally fights mobsters and criminals and things like that, and he's like a, I don't know, it's hard to explain. It's kind of like a Punisher level.
Yeah,
type
he's
character.
his mystical powers don't really lend himself to I'm levitating people, but they do give him the power to alter the shape of his face to disguise himself. He uses that.
He wears a scarf around his face, and then his nose actually elongates and it's not crazy crow, but it's
a lot larger than Cranston's face.
When he takes off that scarf, Cranston doesn't look anything like the Shadow. But of course, we don't. That's just background on the Shadow. But overall, what did you think of the book?
I gave it a silver. I'm intrigued. I like the idea of the Shadow. Obviously, if you're a fan of vigilante books or that time period, the noir, 30s, 40s time period, you're gonna like this. Now, this is set in the present.
It is.
But there's a lot of references back and forth because the doctor even talks about, your body features even burned an old man.
Yeah.
She brings up Old Man Wiener.
Yeah, she does talk about his
Wiener.
passion prizes. Yeah. So,
Twigs and berries.
so she's like, you're definitely older, and because I've seen lots.
Of Old Man Wiener.
But
What
so
happens when you work in a hospital?
you, other than the school shooting, you don't really get a whole lot of action out of the Shadow.
Mhm.
But this is kind of a stage setting. So yeah, I'm gonna go with the silver. I enjoyed it. I would read this.
Yep.
The art is pretty good. The writing's good. So the only thing that keeps me from giving it better than that is there's a lot of history behind the Shadow that they're just kind of scratching the surface of. You don't know how he got his powers. You don't know how he makes the guys see bugs and whatnot. Only reason we know that is because I've watched the Shadow. I've read about the Shadow before. So that could be a detractor for new readers, is that you don't know how he's doing that. Is there really bugs crawling across this dude's face or what? So, but it's a good book. It's a good read, and I think it could go places. And yeah, that's why I give it a silver.
I actually enjoyed this book. I like the way that they introduced the Shadow as a character. I like kind of having that we are the Shadow for a while until the end of the book, kind of hearing the story from another person's point of view. The art's pretty good. The overall, I just kind of enjoyed it. It was interesting. At first, I thought the bugs really were called. I've never read or seen any of the Shadow anything. First, I thought the bugs were coming out of his face, but then you see the guy going acting like a loony towards the end when he gets sent off, and I'm like, oh, okay, so he does something with your mind.
Yeah.
But the book was good. I liked it, so I think Mystic was super.
Yeah, I think what more I think about it, I think his power is the power of suggestion. It's very psychological.
Yeah.
Low level, latent, like you can project thoughts into your
Yeah.
mind.
So hey, your bugs are crawling. You know, we've seen this in movies and TV all the time.
Yeah.
Bugs are crawling all over your body, and you're like,
Kind of like Scarecrow. In the
Yeah.
well, Scarecrow uses chemicals.
So, but yeah, very similar to that. So
I like
that,
how the doctor also was saying how, well, he says he's a good guy, but he's doing everything the bad people do. So
Yeah.
are you really good, or are you just trying to justify what you're doing?
I'm really on the cusp of this book. I don't, and people have made comments that have seen this video that I don't give Golden Age awards at all, and I would like to give this a Golden Age, but I just can't. I give it a high silver, and it was really close to me for a Golden Age because it had great art and great story and an intriguing premise. I don't think I've ever seen a comic with the premise of the main characters in a hospital bed in a burn ward.
Right.
That kind of hooked me. I like the book. I would definitely recommend it to people, but I give it a high silver. If you don't like the Kaluta cover, I counted just now. There are 10 different covers to
Dynamite
choose from.
does do a lot of covers.
Like I don't think we how many covers
We got that one and a black and white version.
right.
So
But there's Neil Adams, Brandon Peterson, Tyler Kirkman.
there's definitely some good artists.
I mean,
on
there's
these
good
covers,
artists that lend their name to it. There's 2 by Neil Adams.
I think I'm a fan of the Brandon Peterson cover actually.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a good book. I'd say go out and read it. Definitely. There you go.
All right, the next book we're going to do is Generations: The Phoenix.
All right, so let's dive right into this nice comic here. It's got a $4.99 cover price from Marvel Comics. Jenny, our resident redhead, what did you think of Marvel's resident redhead?
I've always been pretty fond of the Phoenix Force as a whole, and Jean Grey is pretty cool too. I wish that they had referenced exactly which book it took place in. The Hulk one was really vague. This one I could tell took place during a major storyline within the X-Men books.
Yep.
So I feel like they did put an addendum to the Jean Grey story, that current Jean Grey book that is out right now, because she's running away from the Phoenix Force. She doesn't want anything to do with it because she saw what happens to her when she does take on the Phoenix Force.
Yeah.
So she's kind of running away from her future. And I think that's really fascinating in a sense because there's only been one other person that I know of who, in the history of the comics of the Phoenix Force, has fought that didn't want the Phoenix Force. And that was Hope Summers. So, Jean Grey, past Jean Grey, coming back to the present, running away from the Phoenix Force because she sees what it's going to do, is very interesting. The fact that she has the opportunity to tell Jean, tell herself that, this is what's going to happen to you if you stay on this course, kind of look out, Mastermind's been following you around, and she doesn't take it. Like, she sees the Watcher, which I thought was weird because
She has a conversation with the Watcher.
she does, and I think it's Sin. The Sin storyline happened Original Sin. Happened a few years ago, and Nick Fury took the Watcher's eye.
The Watcher's dead.
Yeah, the Watcher is dead.
Well, there's Watchers. There's not just
Right.
one Watcher.
Yeah, that's true.
So I was
that
kind
looks
of
like a Watcher,
wondering
Yeah, it does
if
look
that
like
was
a
the dead
Watcher.
Watcher
Well,
or not.
if it's the past, I mean,
Or
there's,
if it
there's a
was-
lot of
yeah.
time travel conundrums kind of
That
things
was
with
the
these
thing.
books, but
Is it the Watcher from the future that she is from, or the Watcher from the present that Phoenix is in?
Okay, so the time frame that this book takes place in, based on my recollection of X-Men, and keep in mind, this is during the Byrne Claremont run of X-Men. I think Jean meant the past Jean, Phoenix Jean.
Yeah,
Can't
I
say
think we
past.
should just call them Phoenix and
Phoenix,
Jean.
okay.
Phoenix is the
So,
past one.
Phoenix
Jean's the current.
says that she references to her friends, the X-Men, being dead, and so that heralds back to X-Men 112, 113, where the X-Men fought Magneto in a volcano, and they beat Magneto, but his powers, his base is underneath the volcano. So the volcano explodes. Jean and Beast get out one section of the volcano, and the X-Men get out the other. And both sets of teams think the other pair is dead. So Scott and Jean and Scott are together at the time. Scott thinks Jean Grey is dead and thinks Beast is dead. So, 2/5 of the original X-Men team are dead in Scott's eyes, and Jean thinks the whole team's dead. Except for her and Beast. So the X-Men at the time would have been Cyclops, Storm, Nightcrawler, Colossus, Wolverine, Banshee. So she thinks all those guys died, and that's where the X-Men. This is where this storyline takes place. I wish they would have put these issues, because there's multiple formats where you can go out if you've never read these X-Men storylines. They're among the best ever. The Dark Phoenix storyline, or the Phoenix storyline leading up to the Dark Phoenix, is by far it's my favorite storyline ever in comics. It's concise. They take a weak character in the X-Men and they turn her into the most powerful X-Men ever. And at some point during the run, Claremont writes that her power rivals that of the Creator. So, she's up there on a cosmic level when she becomes Dark Phoenix. She consumes an entire world, and even Jean Grey knows this, and she's struggling at one point during the book to reveal that to Phoenix. And I have a hard time believing that someone who knows their own future is back in the past and can tell herself, watch out, don't make these mistakes, wouldn't do that.
Yeah, I agree with that. Even if she didn't say, hey, you're going to become dark, you're going to let this power consume you, and you're going to, but there's things that are going on, like Mastermind's the key that causes, or at least in normal X-Men continuity, Mastermind taking control of her mind.
Mastermind is among the first
catalyst.
Yeah, he's one of the first supervillains the X-Men ever encounter when he was in the original Brotherhood of the Mutants. And so we hadn't seen him, at that time, we hadn't seen him in a long time. And this character, at first he's like just this person shadowing Jean Grey wherever he goes, and his goal was to corrupt Jean Grey, get her to join the Hellfire Club, and when he did that, he would get admission to the Hellfire Club. And that's his whole goal, but what he doesn't know is that the Phoenix Force is a cosmic entity, and he just thinks she's old Jean Grey. Literally, Jean at one time was the most basic, vanilla,
hey, I can read your mind and move
telepathic character, and
Right.
they took her and turned her into, like I said, a really powerful character. And he doesn't know that, and he basically, he corrupts her, and boy, does he corrupt her.
Yep.
Because there's one point where she's flying around in space as the Dark Phoenix, and she encounters a Shi'ar warship, and she destroys it, and in the process, destroys a planet of 5 billion inhabitants. And they never really named this planet, but from the look of them, they look like asparagus people because they have like big plant heads. They're all destroyed, and I can't believe, knowing that Jean Grey would have warned her, because it's not just her friends that are going to suffer, and Scott and Logan and the rest of the X-Men, but it's like these, just literally billions of people are going to die because of her inaction. If you've ever wondered how powerful Phoenix is, she takes on Terrax, who is, at the time of the original Phoenix storyline, Terrax was the Herald of Galactus, and she bitch slaps him in the submission, and then she actually fights Galactus. And it's interesting how they resolve that fight.
Because she kind of holds her own, but she still loses, and then
because he starts, spoiler
Siphoning
alert, she starts siphoning off. Galactus starts feeding on her, and then Jean Grey steps in and
feeding on everyone. I didn't I haven't been reading much of the new Jean Grey series. I've been picking it up, but I want to wait till I reach 6
So
before I read it.
My opinion on this is somebody, Colleen Bunn and Marvel in general are taking liberties with who Jean Grey was and her
Right.
power levels, because she never exhibited these type power levels. To
Until
To
she became Dark
siphon
Phoenix.
Right,
psychic
until
energy
she was-
from people.
she sucked.
Well, that's Jean Grey. That's
She's-
not
Right.
Phoenix.
She
Yeah.
sucked power off both of them and ended up telekinetically punching Galactus in the face.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was really weird because then she had like a pink little phoenix aura, but she's running away from the phoenix.
Yeah.
And
I remember there's an issue of FF where Galactus lands on Earth, and this was when John Byrne was doing FF, Fantastic Four, and he's going to eat Earth, and a bunch of the heroes, the FF, the Avengers, Spider-Man's there, they all team up, and they ward Galactus, and they knocked him out. I mean, he was flat out like, they knocked him out, and he fell over. And I remember as a kid, or as a teenager, reading that and going, "Holy cow! They just knocked Galactus on his ass." And you know, now if you're reading the book, you'd expect Chris Tucker's character from Friday to run up and go, "You just got knocked the f out," But but that was a really big moment, and like for Jean Grey to punch him, and no, Galactus. I mean, I'm sorry, like he's above all that. I don't think she could ever. Jean Grey could never affect Galactus enough to where he'd even notice her.
right,
So I think they're taking liberties with her. I think they're taking liberties with Phoenix, and I think the importance of this storyline is so important to X-Men lore and to X-Men mythology. They're really playing on that's a sacred cow. I don't know if you should do that, because like at one point during this book, Jean or Phoenix flies off into space and beats off Galactus, and I've never as a longtime X-Men reader from this point, I never saw Phoenix at this time frame that this book is supposed to be set in. She doesn't have that type of power levels
right.
at all.
It's an interesting take. It's different from the first one we read in a lot of ways. I mean, you have a better idea of where it takes place in X-Men continuity.
But
as
if
far
I
as the
wasn't
history.
If I wasn't a longtime X-Men reader, I would be lost, because like the Hulk, I have no idea what time period that Hulk book took place in, other than the fact that General Ross is running around in the book. So
Right.
I mean, if you're going to have a Generations book, put a blurb in there and tell us when this takes place. I mean,
Right.
It's so simple. I mean,
Well, in the first book, the strongest, the one with the Hulks, it was more of a kind of passing of the torch. Hey, you do realize that as the Hulk, you are a prison guard, not, it's not a joint thing. You're supposed to keep this person in check. And this one, it's kind of Jean deciding to grab her own destiny by the reins and move
But she
forward.
doesn't.
But
she doesn't do that. She lets go of the reins, and the Watcher appears in the book, and and she asks him, "Did I make the right choice?" And there's kind of a conversation back and forth. And I was, if I was her father, which I'm old, if I was her father, I'd be disappointed in her. If I was her, I'd be later on. I think I'd really.
Wow, I had the chance.
I had the
change
chance to
stuff.
alter my own destiny, and I didn't do it. And I think I think ultimately for me, that's why this book fails.
Yeah.
And I've questioned why they're doing this. I know as a retailer why they're doing this.
Yeah.
Their sales are slumping and they're suffering, and so they're trying to remind everybody, hey, this is why you love these characters. So
You don't like this book.
I don't. I mean, I know what I'm going to give it. I'm not going to be overly rough on it, if we want to start that now, I'll tell you it's a bronze, because, this is a sacred character for me. And I think Jean Grey fails. She fails on so many levels. I think the art is fantastic during the book. But Colleen Bunn wrote this, and I wish I could talk to Colleen Bunn, because I question, like, what in the world? But the whole concept of this Generations character, like Generations themes, is like, okay, they're going to take a character from the from now and send them back to the past, and it's because some of their books aren't selling, and it's making me miss these old characters and reminding me as a longtime Marvel reader, 40 years of reading comics altogether, and a lot of that's Marvel. It reminds me of how much the company has strayed away from what made them great. In my lifetime, Marvel wasn't the number one company out there. DC was, and during my lifetime, they took that away from DC, and for generations, literally, Marvel's the top dog. In the 1990s, at one point, they had a 70% market share some months. That's amazing, and now, I think they're somewhere around 40%, just off the top of my head. But I still, a theme that I'm always asking myself is, dude, what happened to Marvel? What's happened to my Marvel comics? Because I haven't been enthralled with a storyline in Marvel where I've been looking forward to it month after month, probably since Astonishing X-Men ended with Joss Whedon's run on Astonishing X-Men, and that's sad because that's been more than a decade now. The Winter Soldier storyline of Captain America was really good too, but if for me as a comic book reader and a comic book store owner to have to go back a decade more to go, wow, that's really good comics. That's sad. So I'm going to give this a bronze, and it's barely a bronze, just because of how disappointed I am in it. I wouldn't even tell you I'd buy it.
All right, so obviously, I don't have this. I mean, I read X-Men, but I didn't read it as early as Mike. So my take on it is going to be a little bit different than Mike. I'm a fan of the Phoenix. I thought this book was a cool idea. The whole Generations idea is kind of cool. My question is, what are they going to do with this? What does Amadeus Cho, what does Jean Grey, what do they get by going and talking to their predecessors? Are we going to see anything translate into their current runs? Is that going to change anything?
And how are they getting back in time, and why? I mean,
yeah, well, that's another thing, is who's doing it? Who's pushing them? I mean, it's not the Watcher, but somebody's pushing them back in time to learn something, to change something. I don't know. So I'm curious to see if that translates into anything. I mean, this book raises a lot of questions, and so does all the Generations books have raised questions. Well, why, who, when, what, and my big thing is, are we going to see any ramifications of this? I mean, some of these characters, Banner's dead, Jean Grey, the Phoenix is dead. So, I know some of the Generations books people are still alive. So what are how does this affect that, book? I like the art. I like the story. I thought it was kind of cool. I wasn't sure about the power level of Phoenix at that point in time, if that's, around 114-ish uncanny. So I wasn't aware that she probably couldn't take on Galactus. So
No,
I thought
that's
that was kind of cool.
It's coming off the X-Men storyline in that volcano where she had trouble beating Magneto.
That's obviously that's before I didn't start reading X-Men until the 200s.
From my memory, she didn't beat Magneto. Wolverine sunk his claws into Magneto, and Magneto had to retreat. And when Magneto retreated, there was enough damage to the base that deteriorated the integrity of the base, and the X-Men had to flee.
Yeah.
So it was really a stalemate. I mean, they beat him, but it's only because they drove him off.
Yeah.
Right.
And that was a great, Magneto was, capture them, was going to leave them there for the rest of their lives, type deal.
But I gave the book a silver, just because I don't have the breadth of X-Men knowledge that Mike does. So there's things about it he's not going to like, but I liked it. Thought it was a good book. It does ask a lot of questions, or leave a lot of questions for me. And I'm curious to see what happens. But all in all, I gave it a silver. I liked it.
I liked the art. I liked the concept of the Generations books, because especially older comic readers, are kind of up in arms about the fact that Thor is no longer Thor. Captain Marvel's a girl. Jean Grey's back from the past again. Kind of all these people, they're changing who the character is, and why does the Hulk need to be Amadeus Cho rather than Bruce Banner? You know, this is what people, these characters are so iconic and people grew up with them that changing the identity of who they are, or you know, having someone else take on the moniker has been kind of a slap in the face for a lot of readers. And I'm hoping that this Generations book is bridging the gap between the two, kind of like a passing of the torch or a gauntlet, and they're learning about who it is that they're supposed to step up and represent. And to that degree, at least that's what I want from these books. It's kind of what they're doing, but not to the full potential of what they could be doing.
There have been times in comic book history that literally every single major comic book character has been supplanted by another one. It happened to Batman. It's happened to Spider-Man. I mean, Doctor Octopus, whatever.
Yeah.
But one thing you always know is eventually Peter Parker is going to be Spider-Man again, and eventually Bruce Wayne's going to be Batman again. And that's the problem with books like the Totally Awesome Hulk. Eventually Banner's going to be Hulk again. And so, as a longtime comic book reader, we're jaded speaking on behalf of longtime comic readers, and we're jaded by that. And
Right.
We don't. I mean, it'd be great if a comic book buyer that has given up on comics can step into a comic book store and go, "Oh, I'm going to see what's going on in the Hulk," and then pick up the book and go, "Well, cool. At least Bruce Banner is still the Hulk," but they can't even do that, you know. And you know, a longtime X-Men reader that would come into this and would remember the Dark Phoenix storyline, and they would read this and they would say, "Well, you know, we're, you know."
Right.
So that's why I've got a really big problem with it.
And I can understand that. Luckily, I've been fortunate in the sense, well, fortunate and unfortunate in two ways. I didn't start reading comics till well after you guys had started. So I've been subject to the newer stuff. And that's kind
And
of...
there's nothing wrong with that
Right.
at all. I mean, I'm not saying that.
It's kind of what most of my foundation of comics that I like are.
Yeah.
But there aren't... I know that there are trades out there, but it's hard to find a trade of old X-Men that covers more than 4 issues for less than $40.
Well, there,
You know?
and you like, now we've gotten, it's easier to go, okay, well, here's a new X-Men trade. You know, it's going to be about 6 issues. If they wanted to put every single instance that led up to the Dark Phoenix saga, and there is a Dark Phoenix trade in it,
Right.
it's concise and it collects, you know, X-Men 129 through 137 or something like that.
Right.
But literally, it happened over, you know,
A
Phoenix's
year or so.
descent in X-Men in numerological order happened. Okay, she became Phoenix in issue 101, and she died in 137. So
Right.
think about that. I mean, that's
That's a lot of books.
okay.
But because of not having done that, I actually have more of an appreciation for these books just as what they are and what I hoped for them to be. So I'm going to give it a silver. I like the interactions between them. The fact that the Watcher was there kind of made me think that's why Jean chose what she chose. I wish that there was some sort of, like in the Hulk book, you kind of got more insight into who the Hulk is. I wish there was something like that with the Phoenix book. So that's why it's only getting a silver for me. The art was great, but there's just something lacking.
All right, and that's our episode for this week. If you can't come to our store, find a local comic book store and come to them. Hit the subscribe button and the like button if you're so inclined. And if you got any questions, send us a question at our email address.
Yep. Or leave a comment below.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.